What's up? What's up? See if y'all have any questions. Let's talk about the big win from Texas Tech, 49-28 over Houston earlier tonight. I was at the game. Um, you know, total victory. So let's see what y'all have. Hey, David Breckham. What's up, Lucas? Hey. A lot of, well, not a lot, but some Inside the Red Raiders subscribers asked me to do a live chat. So here I am. I aim to please. All right, David, true or false? We finally won because Keeley ran the running backs. Man, it didn't hurt. They ran early and often with Taj, and then it was really nice to see Cameron Valdez come in and be that change of pace back, hit some big plays. I think Taj is probably the best player on the team right now, and he certainly played like it tonight against Houston, or today against Houston. It's 3 consecutive games with over 100 yards, but I think it was the fact that they were consistent in terms of running him. They set the tone early with him, and they never let up. There was a time early in the fourth quarter where they had 3 incompletions that had a punt, but then they got the ball back. The defense got another stop, and they ran it down Houston's throat. And the offensive line did a great job. And I think you got to feed Taj. I think that is what Tech's identity on offense is to run the ball. I think that's what the offensive line does the best job at. And man, I really hope they keep giving Taj the ball, and I want to see Valdez get the ball more. I really liked what I saw from him. That's what was advertised, going into the season, and we finally saw that. So to answer your question, true. It definitely didn't hurt. I don't think you probably aren't in the game if you don't set the tone with the running game early on, and then you put it away with the running game. Those bucket hats of promo. I don't even know what you're talking about. This comes from Sam times 9,000. I don't know what the bucket hats were. I missed that. Lucas wants to know who was the best player today. Oh, I guess I got to go with Taj. Either Taj or, you know what? Loic Fungi. You know what? I'm going to give him some love. He caught a pass for a touchdown, and he had that huge block punt, which he recovered and scored. So I'm going to give it to Loic. He's had a rough start to the season, but, he played really well today. Gary George wants to know about the D. I just saw another question that's funny. How about the D, all those underclassmen playing? Yeah, Michael Dingle, of course, Ben Roberts, he's been playing. They both played really well. The future's really bright at inside linebacker. Chapman Lewis looked really good at safety. Rabbit left the game with a back injury, and McGuire said he expects Rabbit to be back next week. That's good news. But Chapman Lewis looked really good. He was in there in the second half when they shut out Houston. So I've heard nothing but good things about him and Brendan Jordan and Jordan Sanford. I really like those young guys. I think they're going to make a really nice, strong nucleus in the secondary a couple of years from now, for sure. I'm probably missing some guys. Some defensive linemen. Joseph Adediri, he had a strong game as well. And Dylan Spencer is another guy. He showed some speed. That guy can really move for somebody his size. So that's exciting. Kim Coulter says, yo, JJ, can't believe you're not into that bottle of Woodford tonight. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not at all. This is Dr. Pepper. All right, next question. David Curtin again. He says, I thought Morton played great, and that was the best play calling we've had all game. I think he meant all season. Obviously, the special team touchdowns helped, but running game was amazing. Yeah, no, going back to getting the run started early and staying with it, that's the key. That is what the identity for this offense should be. And I think the whole team kind of got some energy off the way Taj ran the ball, the way Cameron Valdez ran the ball, and just the fact that the offensive line was really dominating Houston's defensive front. I think the whole team got energized by that. And McGuire had a really good comment in the postgame press conference. He said that running the ball really settles down your whole team. And I think that's what we saw earlier today from Texas Tech. Lucas the Goat wants to know how the QB situation is going. Well, of course, Tyler's probably out for the whole season. Barron, he actually didn't throw all week, but he was working on some things, watching film, and I thought he looked really calm and collected today. Actually, I thought he was very accurate, which is what we saw in the offseason, more so than like what we saw against West Virginia, where he was erratic with his accuracy. I mean, he was throwing dimes out there, and like at least 3 of his incompletions were drops that were on the money. So Barron looked really, really good. Again, McGuire said in the post game that that's kind of going to be the plan if Barron's still hurt, for him not to throw as much during the week, but be ready and then get going on game day. But he's hoping that Barron gets better and is better next week. And then Jake Strong is next guy up, and he's actually getting a lot of the snaps in practice, which is a good thing because he's a true freshman. But I like his future. A lot of people talk about Will Hammond, the 2024 commit, and rightfully so. He's a highly rated 4-star guy, Elite 11 quarterback, and people talk about Barron Morton. But Jake Strong is not somebody who should be ignored. I think he might end up being the guy a couple years down the road, actually. So we'll have to see. He at least has a year head start on Will Hammond. So that'll be an interesting quarterback battle moving forward down the road. All right. David Heimel wants to know what adjustments did the defense make in the second half. He's surprised they shut him out in the last 2 quarters. So was I. That's a good question. I actually asked Coach McGuire that in the post-game press conference. And he said in the first half, I don't know if you noticed, but they were really only rushing 3 guys, and they were trying to corral Donovan Smith and drop 8. And they thought that was going to be really effective against him. And honestly, I understand why. I really do. But clearly it was not effective. But in the second half, they went back to doing more of what they do. They rushed 4. They did a lot of stunts, a lot of twists, a lot of different things to create consistent pressure on Donovan Smith. And that hurried up his process. That made him throw quicker than he wanted to. He couldn't just set his feet and have all day like he had in the first half. And I think that went a long way towards the second half shutout. And, it's interesting that sometimes, and I don't fault the coaches for coming up with that scheme and going with it in the first half, but sometimes you can outsmart yourself, just do what you do sometimes, and that's what ultimately what ended up winning the game for you was the way your defense stepped up and got that consistent pressure. I thought Steve Linton had his best half. He looked close to what we were expecting going into the season. He drew a couple of holding penalties on Houston, and he got some pretty good pressure on Donovan Smith a couple of times. So that was really, really nice to see. So like a significant contribution in the pass rush from Steve Linton. So that's something to watch for moving forward. Last time I said the offense looks a lot better with Morton. Well, the offense looked a lot better running the ball today, So I'm going to agree with you. This is the best the offense has looked all year. There's no doubt. And I think it was because of what David was asking me earlier. He said, the rushing attack was huge. And, the true or false question, is that why Tech won the game? And I think we've been saying that. We expected that, even though with Zach Kittley being a air raid spread offense, not really air raid, but a disciple of the progression or the evolution of, the air raid, and then he learned under Kingsbury what he did, and he's done his own thing. They want to throw the ball around. They want to air it out. I get it. And he's been successful doing that. He was at Western Kentucky and at Houston Baptist, but Tech's strength right now, both on the offensive line and in terms of personnel skill position, is running the ball. And I think that's what they got to do this year to win games, and then get more of your personnel in, and you can do what you want to do. But a good coach can adapt to his personnel. And that's what Kittley has to do. That's what he did against Houston, and that's why they won. And that's why the offense looked better under Morton today. All right. Kim Coulter says, what's your gut say about Tech's ability to run on other teams like they did today? That remains to be seen. I think at some point if Tech stays consistent with running the ball, they're going to have to come up with all kinds of counters. You got those big tight ends. You already have an RPO game installed. You could do some things to work off if defenses start trying to shut down Taj Brooks, which they better, or Taj will keep running wild. But even if they do, I think Taj has shown he can be an elite player. I really do believe Taj Brooks at this point in his career is one of the elite running backs in the Big 12. And, I think even if defenses gear their whole game plan towards stopping him, I don't know if they're going to be able to do consistently. I think on the road against Baylor is going to be a good test. I really do, in that regard. And then the whole chess match off of that. Now, will Cameron Valdez run for 106 yards on 5 carries again? I don't know. He looked really good, but I really like that combo, and I think they're going to have more success, their continued success this year. Will they be able to do it every game? I don't know. I did like the adjustment they made that McGuire mentioned, where they were running a lot of their counter game, which is what was working against West Virginia in the second half last week. And then when Houston adjusted and stopped their counter game, they went more to their zone blocking scheme. And that's where you saw some of those cutbacks, some of those creases where which is basically what the zone game is about, is getting a defense to flow and then the running back reading it and cutting into the crease and gashing defenses for big gains. And I thought both in the counter game and in the zone blocking game, both the offensive line and the running backs look very comfortable doing that, which is, I mean, that has me feeling optimistic about their ability to keep doing this. If they can adjust and play multiple different ways in the running game, that speaks to them probably having a good opportunity to keep that going moving forward. It's another good question. Billy Blueheart says, is this style of play calling going to be the new norm for Tech moving forward? He says he loves the run first approach. So do I. And I don't know. I think in my experience, and this is at all sports, all levels, whether it be like I started down in Brownsville, Texas, covering, I think the first thing I covered, well, it was football, high school football. But then I think I covered like high school softball and stuff like that, all the way up to covering the Dallas Cowboys and pro and all that stuff, and covering college football at a high level. What I've noticed is coaches do what they feel comfortable. They do it when it comes down to it and it's crunch time and all that. Coaches seem to just go with what they're used to doing, what they're comfortable with. And for Zach Kitley, that's airing it out. So I think it's going to be on Joey McGuire and some of the other coaches to stay on him and say, look, you got to keep running the ball. We got to be consistent with it. And I think Kitley's going to have to be disciplined. He's young, it's because we saw that again. I mean, early in the fourth quarter, they got a couple of first downs. That Tech was up. They got a couple of first downs with Taj, or at least one on like a 12-yard run, and then they called 3 straight passing plays. And in those plays, like guys were open, and Baron Morton threw dimes. And I think who was it? Coy Aiken dropped a pass that he should have caught, and then Xavier White, he was normally sure-handed. He dropped 2 passes in a row, and Tech had to punt. Now, schematically, like just being an X's and O's like nerd, Kitley dialed up good plays, and it was executed all the way up to the point until the receivers dropped the passes. But why not stick with your running game there? He didn't. They had to punt. Now the defense got to stop. They got the ball back, and then he pounded the rock. I don't know if it was him or McGuire said, hey, run the ball or whatever, but Tech did go right back to pounding the rock, and that's why they were able to put the game away. At that point, Houston waved the white flag, and Kitley showed some discipline there in saying, okay, I tried. It was the right call, but in terms of X's and O's, but was it really the right call when we could just hand it to Taj and Cameron and get out of here with a victory? So, that remains to be seen. I think that's a good question. That's one of the questions about Texas Tech football right now. And we're going to have to see, when they're in crunch time next week in Waco, what is Kitley going to do? Is he going to revert back to airing it out, or is he going to, be methodical, hand it off to Taj and Cameron and then win that way or compete that way? Lucas the Goat wants to know, do I think Tech can get a W next week? Yeah, I think they can. Even earlier today when Baylor was down 25, I was like, man, Baylor's just not that good this year. Now they came back from 25 points down. What a big win for them. Like potentially a season-saving victory, coming back from 25 points at UCF. Now, the big thing that gives me pause about next week is it's on the road. And I hate that this is a storyline, but it is. Tech's 0-2 on this year, and they're 1-6 in true road games under Joey McGuire. And I'm sure he's tired of hearing about that. I'm tired of talking about it, but it is a talking point. So until they prove they could consistently win, or at least more than 1 out of 7 times that they can win on the road, then I'm going to be a little skeptical. But it's a big game for a number of reasons. Obviously, in-state conference rivals. Both teams are kind of in the same spot. Disappointing start, but coming off big wins. Would like to keep the momentum going further into Big 12 play. And then all the storyline, all the ties with Joey McGuire having coming from Baylor, a lot of his staff, a lot of the guys that are currently on Tech staff came over with him from Baylor. So it's going to be some juicy storylines and some fun things to talk about this week. But if he was in Lubbock, I would feel pretty dang confident about Texas Tech. I don't say pretty dang. I would feel much more confident if it was at home than it was in Waco. But that's why they play the games. It would, on the other hand, if they do go into Waco and get a win, that would be huge for the program and this season. All right. Efren Zuniga wants to know, has Linton been hurt? Yeah, he's wearing a cast. I think it's on his left hand. He hurt his thumb, and he's supposed to get that cast off relatively soon. But, I mean, I'm not saying that hasn't hurt his game some, but that doesn't account for why he hasn't been very effective with his pass rush. Now, he was, again, in the second half tonight. He was good. But he wasn't getting a lot from Texas Tech prior to the second half. I mean, Texas Tech wasn't getting a lot from him prior to the second half today. So if he can keep that going, that kind of production going, then it will be a good pickup. But he needs to be consistent with his production. Is this the first live? It is the first live, and it was. It was requested on Inside the Red Raiders. My customers, my peeps asked me to do it, so here I am. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing YouTube Live, if that's how I'm going to do it, but I posted a link on the board. I was asked to do it, so here I am. I aim to please. I don't know if we'll keep doing this or not, but so far it's gotten a pretty good response. Kim says good night. Good night, Kim. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining in. And congrats on the victory, man. David Curtin says, Bradley had a quiet day today. Man, this light's kind of creeping me out. I'm going to try and turn on another light so it's not so yellow. Let's see if that helps at all. Still kind of yellow, but that's better. All right. Bradley had a quiet day today. What do you think caused it, and does he bounce back next week? Does Aiken ever become a regular contributor? Well, first off, yeah, Bradley was quiet. He got open once, and Barron missed him on a deep route. But, yeah, not a whole lot from Jaron Bradley. That's not as magnified as it would be if it had been a loss, of course. But, man, he going into the game, he was leading the team in catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, but still hadn't been kind of the season we were all expecting from him. So that's definitely going to be something to watch moving forward. I think he has a lot of potential. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a really good player. But, yeah, I mean, I think he had 1 catch for 5 yards today. And that's not what you expect from your number one receiver. The good news is a lot of other guys. Miles Price, I think he had 5 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. Fungi, he had a touchdown. And it was really more about the running game today. So we'll have to see. Maybe Bradley has a big game in Waco next week. GBYO says, would you say that high school recruiting is starting to bloom? Yeah, I think it's been blooming. I mean, we have a thread on Inside the Red Raiders, over 30 recruits that we confirmed. I think it was most of the people that were here. I think we confirmed almost all of them, actually. Pretty good sources on that. But some pretty good players. I heard there could even be another 2025 commit coming soon if it didn't happen while I'm doing this. We'll have to see about that. It wasn't like a for sure thing, but one of the 2025 guys on campus was kind of hinting that he was thinking about committing. So that'd be 2 already in 2025, and that seems pretty early. You have I haven't checked in a couple of days. Those things fluctuate, but last I saw, Tech's 2024 class was top 25. Micah Hudson was on campus again today, highest rated recruit ever. I think we have to watch Cheeto Ofili, who took an unofficial to Texas A&M last weekend. So he's the second guy on your list in terms of the highest rated 4-star guy. I think he would be a top 10 guy in the modern era of recruiting to sign with Texas Tech. So that's somebody you want to hold on to. And, just because he visited A&M doesn't mean he's definitely leaving, but he did visit A&M, so that's something to monitor. In a recent interview, he said he was solid with Tech, but I think McGuire is a great recruiter, and not just him, but James Blanchard, Brian Nance, a lot of the guys on the staff. I mean, Juice Johnson, go down the list. Zach Kitley. I mean, look at some of the guys he's recruited at quarterback. I mean, Jake Strong, Will Hammond. I really like, he found Will Hammond. I had to create his profile. He came to a summer camp, threw for Kitley, and Kitley offered him on the spot. Excuse me. And, he's since blown up, but he was literally did not even have a recruiting profile before Kitley found him and offered him. So a lot of the guys on the staff are really good recruiters. That's something I don't worry about with the staff at all. They're going to be good recruiters, and their whole process for how they do it is unique, and it works. Gary George said he saw Pierre at the soccer game Thursday and he didn't look hurt. What is the injury? I don't know. I don't know if McGuire didn't want to disclose it. I saw Pierre too in street clothes when walking from the Jones to the facility, and he looked to be okay. Pierre is supposed to be okay next week. So, excuse me. Done a lot of talking today. We had the radio show 2 hours before the game too. So a lot of talking today. So my voice is feeling it. No, I think Pierre, I think Rabbit, they're both expected to be back next week, so that's good news. Lucas the Goat says the light does look better. Thank you. Sean Turner said, thanks for doing this live stream on YouTube. Hey, man, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Into Pro, my boy, former Red Raider, by the way, great guy. I've actually met him. We do these board meetings with, some of us on the staff go and hang out with some of the subscribers on the site and the users on the site and have a couple of drinks, eat some food, talk Red Raider football. And we've hung out at least a half a dozen times now. He's one of my favorite people in Lubbock, man. So I'm glad you tuned in. I hope you're doing well, man. Last Sunrise said, JJ, you were the GOAT. With that said, how are you feeling about this year's Tech team at this point? I'm disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I was one of the people really hyping up this team in the offseason because I believe that, they returned a lot of the guys who made that run at the end of last year that won 4 games in a row. I've heard some people try and discredit some of those wins. No. That win over Kansas looks pretty good. I really like their coaching staff this year. They had not a resurgence, but kind of a, announcing that they were going to, be viable in the Big 12 last year. And Tech really needed that win. They got that win. They went to Iowa State. That's your one true road win under Joey McGuire. And it was freezing weather, and Iowa State really needed that win to be bowl eligible. There was so much going on, so much going against Texas Tech, but they got the win. You're down 17-0 to Oklahoma. In the first half, you come back and beat them, a team you hadn't beaten in forever, and then you beat Ole Miss. And I don't care how many guys were in or out for Ole Miss. That was a big win, and you physically dominated them. So you bring a lot of those guys back. You bring back almost the entire coaching staff. You had some really nice pieces. And I'm thinking, hey, I saw them in several practices in spring and fall camp, and I really believed that Tech was going to be much better. And I don't think that we misread the talent or potential of this team. I think they haven't lived up to that potential. And that's my honest opinion. I think it's on the coaches and the players. Yeah, they were right in those games, but I don't think they did. They didn't make the necessary plays late in games. I didn't like some of the play calling. We've talked about that in terms of running the ball. Some of the guys who were brought in the transfer portal haven't lived up to the hype. So that's one thing. But I really feel like it's about them not reaching the potential more than everybody being wrong. I don't think Joey McGuire was wrong to be so optimistic. And I really don't think that we were inside the Red Raiders. I think it's been so far a disappointment in terms of performance, but they were right there. And I think the good news about that, though, is that there's still time to turn it around. The potential is there to still have a good season. Now, not as great as we thought, but I still think there's an opportunity there, and there's enough talent there and good football players and good coaches for Texas Tech to have a really good season this year. GBYO says, thanks for doing the live chat. Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for being here. Efren Zaniga said, forgive the ignorance. No one can tell me which player is Rabbit. Oh, I'm sorry. Dadrian Taylor Demerson. I get, man, all these guys have nicknames, and I just get so used to, in the conversations I have with coaches and players and media, we just get used to calling them by their nicknames. But Dadrian Taylor Demerson, his nickname is Rabbit. He was the all-state running back in Oklahoma in high school, and I think they won state championships in multiple sports in multiple years. And he was a great running back at the high school level in Oklahoma, and he got that nickname Rabbit. And it stuck. And I think it's easier to just call him Rabbit than Dadrian Taylor Demerson, but that's who we're talking about. Oh, and Last Sunrise already said it. My bad. All right. Lucas the Goat wants to know, do you think Tech can be good under pressure? Or they were last year. This year they haven't made the winning plays in crunch time so far, but they brought back a lot of players who proved that they could make the game winning plays when it mattered. So I think that they might be in that same position on the road next week, where it's like one play or one possession game between Baylor and Tech. And I don't know if it's going to be Tech's offense or defense who are going to be asked to make that winning play in crunch time, but I think there's going to be an opportunity to answer that question next week, because if they win that, then it's like, okay, you kind of reset the season. Like maybe Tech can compete, get to a bowl game, and perhaps do more. If they can prove they can go and win a tough road game like this at Baylor, then maybe they can do some other stuff, and we could have some fun this season. David Curtin wants to know, says, assuming Morton stays healthy and plays the rest of the season, how many more games does Texas Tech win? That's a good question. We got Baylor. You got to play at BYU. I don't think BYU is great or anything, but they're not bad, and it's a road game. You got TCU at home. You got Texas there right now. I got to be honest. Texas looks to be legit. Who am I missing? UCF at home. I'm not really sure what to make of UCF right now, but that possibly is a game you could win. I don't know on a neutral field if I'd pick Tech to beat TCU, but a Thursday night game in Lubbock, I think Tech has a good chance of winning that. So realistically, I see Tech winning, I'd say somewhere between 3 and 5 more games in the regular season. So, but the difference in that is huge, either 5 wins or 7 wins. So I think at this point, with the disappointing non-conference, just getting to a bowl this year and setting up for something next year. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's my realistic answer. You could get back to a bowl, get all the benefits of that, maybe win a bowl, and get some more positive momentum going in the offseason. I think that's the best case scenario at this point. George Van says, of all our players who have pass rushing potential, who do you think will come on the most? I think Dylan Spencer, true freshman, dude's a beast. He really is. I wish I could be more expressive than that. He has a great combination of natural physical size and athletic ability that I think is uncommon. He was a guy you flipped from Texas late in the recruiting cycle in 2023. And I think he's one of those guys that, as he gets more seasoning, he flashed a little bit today against Houston. There was one play where he ran downfield and caught up with a running back who was kind of juking, and I was like, how did a dude that big, get across the field so fast? And I've seen that in practice from him. So I think from a pass rushing perspective, he might be a guy that comes to the forefront over the second half of the season. GBYO wants to know, how was the home environment today? Home team environment. It was good. It wasn't a packed house. I know it was a sellout in terms of tickets sold, but there was a couple of sections up high that, were only half filled at that. And there were some open seats scattered throughout there. But Mighty Joe and I were talking about this in some of our, I don't remember if it was a video or podcast, whatever, but it seems like fans are really sticking around longer. Like I remember we lamented for years that at halftime there would just be this mass exodus, and we could see it from the press box of people leaving. It'd be a good game against a good team, exciting. Like why even come to the game if you're going to leave? I know people have their reasons, and hey, it's a free country, it's your life, do what you want to do. But that was always disappointing. Even more than like a smaller crowd, just the crowd that leaves. But we haven't seen that so far this year, and I didn't see it today. I mean, I don't remember that many people leaving at all until late in the game or even after the game. So they were loud and they were into it, and of course, honoring Coach Leach and Kingsbury and some of the other people, I think was really neat. So it was a special night, and then they retreated to a really good performance from the Red Raiders. So it was a cool environment at the Jones today for sure. Purple Juice 88 wants to know what I thought about the DBs today. I thought it was a mixed bag, to be honest. I thought some of the young guys, like I mentioned Chapman Lewis, I thought he looked good at safety. Dadrian Taylor Dimerson, also known as Rabbit, I thought it was interesting that they did so well in the second half without him, because I remember thinking there's been so many times this year where if he doesn't make that sure tackle, a play that maybe went for 8 or 10 yards is going to the house. And he had a couple of those today. So he's been really good this year. Malik Dunlap did get beat on one play that was an incompletion. It was an inaccurate pass from Donovan Smith deep, but he's been really good. And they're asking him to do a lot. He's not playing soft coverage. He's going up and playing mono coverage, one-on-one without safety help a lot of time. And he's done a good job. Of course, he had 3 interceptions combined the previous 2 games. Didn't get one today, but he's been pretty good. He's been kind of a rock for them. Thought Braylon Lux does some really good things, but he also gets beat sometimes, and he got burnt on a touchdown pass today. So did Rashad Williams, another starting corner. But it's hard to complain too much about a secondary that helped contribute to a second half shutout. So I think this team has to be aggressive with its pass rush, just like we talked about the offense having to set the tone and run the ball and consistently run it, not just run in the second half or when they think it's going to work, but early and often and stay with it. I think the defense has to, not necessarily blitzing, but the whole 3-man rush, dropping 8. I don't think that's this team's identity. They have to be aggressive. They have to get after the quarterback and hurry up that clock to where the quarterback doesn't get comfortable in the pocket. Because I don't think these guys are good enough to just sit back, and I don't think they're comfortable, the DBs, with that kind of coverage. I think this is just the personality of the guys on defense right now. Or let's get in their face. Let's play man to man. Maybe have a single high safety, and then get after the quarterback and take our chances there. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot moving forward. Man, I don't know. How much time do you have? Reckham wants to know. He said, I've seen y'all a lot over the years, but never been able to ask. Can you briefly describe y'all's story? Who the heck is Mighty Joe Yeager? Just kind of how Inside the Rivalries came about. Well, the site's been around for a long time. There's been several iterations of it. It's been called different names. It used to be Raider Power. When I took over, I was a sports writer at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, where I took over as publisher. Mighty Joe was already here. It was actually RaiderPower.com was owned by Fox Sports and Steve Pitts, who I saw on the press box today. He's still a very good friend of mine. He's no longer associated with the site, but great dude. He was the producer for Texas Tech football for like 40-something years. So he's a legend and just a great guy. But yeah, I was associated with Fox Sports, and it was really kind of old school looking. It looked like something from like the AOL like dial-up days or something. So I was kind of hesitant to come over, but the opportunity to come cover Texas Tech exclusively was, and I was looking to get out of the newspaper gig. I had been in newspapers my whole career prior to that. And obviously, I mean, I have great respect for newspapers and newspaper writers, but that's just not where it's at anymore. It's just so limited. So I was looking to do that anyways. And at the time, my wife was a friendship girl, a Lubbock girl. So there was a lot of reasons for us to come out here, and it was a great opportunity. So I did. And then we were bought out by Scout, which honestly was kind of terrible. And then thankfully, 24/7 Sports bought the site from Scout, and it's been great. And I'm a full-time employee of CBS, and part of the Viacom Paramount umbrella. And man, they are terrific. I've been with the site for 10 years now. Actually, this October, it's coming up on to be exactly 10 years. I think my first game was the Fox game. It was a Thursday night game against TCU, Kingsbury's first year. TCU Thursday night Fox game. Yeah, it was the first day. And Mighty Joe was already here. He had written for Red Raider Sports, the Rivals site, for a while, and then Steve Pitts recruited him over to Raider Power, and he was one of the only guys I retained. Honestly, I was kind of hired, which I did not enjoy this, but that was the job, to kind of clean house. But Mighty Joe was one of the only guys I kept. And he is one of the most unique people you'll ever meet. He has like 20 degrees or something. He was on track. He was like a TA at Princeton, and got disillusioned with the whole university system in terms of professors and kind of, I'll let him tell you if you ever get a chance. But interesting story. He was going to be a professor, and now he works at the Tech Library. He's been promoted several times since I've been here, but his passion is music, food. Mighty Joe's a big foodie, actually. He loves to write about food. Like, I'm surprised he doesn't have his own blog reviewing food. But there's nobody like Mighty Joe. He's great. He's a great friend of mine. Known him for 10 years now. And he's a big part of what we do at Inside the Red Raiders. I think he has a unique voice. I don't think there's anybody else in the market that has his voice. And I think I try and stay out of his way and help him however I can, for sure. But that's a brief, history of who Mighty Joe is and who we are and what we've been trying to do. How was the halftime ceremony? It was good. I was working and doing some things, getting ready for the second half, so I didn't get to see all of it. But I wouldn't say – I say it was like understated. It wasn't – they didn't make too big of a deal of it, like go over the top, but it was good. I think it was classy, and it did what they were trying to do. It was great. I'm glad that Coach Leach was honored at an actual Texas Tech event. I think that was great. Lucas the Goat wants to know, how is the view from the press box? Well, it's kind of like I'm looking down. We're way up, and it's weird because different press boxes at different stadiums, they're different. Like, I remember that Arkansas game remember when Kingsbury called out, I forgot his name now, the Arkansas coach at the time. I was there, right there in the postgame presser. But that press box was just like 2 stories up, and they opened it up. So it was like you were part of the crowd. Texas Tech, and they're first class with how they treat us, and they feed us and all that. But it feels like you're like on the 10th story, and it's enclosed, it's AC, which isn't bad, but you're like looking almost straight down, you feel like, on the field. So it's kind of like the coach's view, like a sideways. It'd be kind of like Madden, except it's twisted. You're getting sideways instead of the long ways view of the above view. So it's good. I like it. Sometimes I wish I was in the crowd, but then when it's really hot, I'm glad I'm in the AC too. So I do have a story. Pete Christie, who I do the Rockin' pregame on Rock 101 FM, he and I, we did the pregame. We were walking over the stadium. We go up the elevator. I've been up a million times at the Jones, and it got stuck, and the lights started flickering, and then we dropped, and there was like 5 of us in there, and we all looked at each other wide-eyed, and then the lights started flickering again. The numbers and everything went out, like the display went out, and we dropped again. And at that point, all of us admitted we were a little scared, but I don't know, we were stuck in there for like, 5 or 10 minutes. And then somebody came and tapped on from the outside, and they pried open the door, and we were able to climb through and get to the press box. Well, I was like, I'm taking the stairs after the game on the way to the post-game press conference. But that was a different way to get to the game today. Austin Rushing says, Tech's going to beat Baylor next week. It's coming. I hope you're right, man. Efren wants to know, what do they need to do to get Graham Harrell in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, that's a good question. I think he definitely should be there. I mean, I think most people would say he's the best quarterback in Texas Tech history. If not that, then right there. I mean, I think just like Austin said about, going to beat Baylor next week, it's coming. I think it's coming that Texas Tech's going to beat, or that Graham Harrell is going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point. What is this year's path to 7 wins? Oh, I think he meant, yeah, Reckham said Ring of Honor. He's in the Hall of Fame. You're right. Ring of Honor. I get confused, man. All the word. You're right. But I think that's what he was asking about is the Ring of Honor. And yeah, Graham should be there, and I think it's going to happen at some point. What's this year's path to 7 wins? Ooh, well, you got to win at Baylor. I think that's one of your winnable games. You got to beat TCU at home, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be easy. UCF at home. You basically got to win all your home games, and then you got to steal a couple. I don't want to say you can't beat Texas there because a lot can change between now and Thanksgiving, but that on paper right now that seems very difficult. I wish Tech played Oklahoma State this year because I think that's a winnable game. But you're going to have to get a lot better on the road, and you're going to have to, when you're going to have to take care of business at home. I mean, that's the bottom line. And see, a really tough game in that is Kansas. I don't know. I can't remember if that's – I think that's in Kansas. I think that's in Lawrence actually too. I can't remember if that's right or not. I think the Kansas game was in Lubbock last year. So that sounds really difficult too on paper. I mean, Kansas is playing really well. I don't know what they did today. I haven't seen yet. I've been busy with Tech, but that sounds very difficult as well. So I guess they played Texas, and last I saw it was back, kind of back, and Texas jumped out and Kansas kind of came back. But I have no idea how the game ended, honestly. But still, no matter how that played out today, I think that's going to be a tough one for Texas Tech. So, but they're going to have to upset somebody to get to 7 wins. Raider Shine says Graham Harrell is the best Tech quarterback of all time. His name needs to be in the stadium permanently. I agree, Raider Shine. George Vance says he was at the Arkansas game in Fayetteville and was shocked at what seemed to be such an old, dilapidated stadium, but very nice, friendly fans. Yeah, I remember Don Williams and I getting screamed at because we went a certain way to try and get to the post-game press conference. Their AD, I think he was probably just pissed because Tech kicked their butts, but he came screaming at us. And I just said, hey, man, get off me. I'm probably never going to be here again. Just let me get to the press conference. And he was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Like, geez. But yeah, a lot of the fans were cool. It was a really cool atmosphere, and it was beautiful. I think that was my first time in Fayetteville. It was my first time in Fayetteville, and the campus and the surrounding area was beautiful. But it may have been an old stadium, but for example, like UT Stadium is old, but it feels like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like have that kind of like homey feel that the Arkansas stadium did. I mean, that felt really cool. Like it felt like everyone was a part of the game. Like they were really close to the field. So maybe it was just because it was so different that I liked it. So you don't play Kansas this year. Is that right? I thought they do. Let me look at the schedule here. You got Kansas State coming up too. That's another tough one. On paper, I think Kansas State is a tough matchup. And they've won, I don't know how many times in a row. Even some bad Kansas State teams have beaten Tech here in recent years. So Tech is in Lawrence on November 11th against Kansas. So they do play this year, I thought. Let's see. How many do we win this year? I'm going to go with 6 for Texas Tech. There you go. Matt even said they do play November 11th. All right. It's all good. Hey, I had the whole Hall of Fame and Ring of Honor thing mixed up too. We all make mistakes, especially kind of later, not later, but on a Saturday night. All right. What else do we have? We have anything else? I think I'm going to jump off here. We've been going for almost 45 minutes. It's been a pretty good run. Y'all have a couple of questions. I'll answer them real quick before I get out of here. Does Jones Stadium have a secret tortilla factory? Well, it wouldn't be secret if a lot of people knew about it. That would be cool if they did. I keep getting asked this. I have a question for y'all. Does anybody know the genesis, of how that started? Because I remember being a student and throwing tortillas, but when did that start and how did it start? Because I get asked that when I do other podcasts for Oregon or Houston, and everybody I've asked, nobody seems to know. how that actually started. So if anybody knows how the tortilla throwing got started, let me know. Efren says, shout out to Bryce Ramirez battling back from injury. Yeah, I can't believe he's back so fast. That was a gruesome injury. And not only is he like back on the roster and all that, or back like playing, but he's playing a lot. He played a lot today. He almost had an interception. He should have had an interception, but he made some good tackles today. And with so many young guys playing linebacker, it's hard to imagine them not having Bryce Ramirez, and then what he means to the team in terms of chemistry and everything. It's been he is a inspiring young man. Is what I'd say about Bryce Ramirez. Raider Shine says he was at the first game with tortillas. He will tell me. Well, tell me what's the deal, man? Tell us. Yeah, Billy Blueheart says I've heard 25 different tortilla origin stories. Yeah, me too. I want to know what it really is. Thank you, Lucas. I appreciate the shout out, the compliment, the great live stream. Reckham said he believes the tortilla thing started at an Aggie game, and they said there isn't anything in Lubbock except a tortilla factory. I believe that's right. Senior sack days. That's a good thought. That would be cool if that's why it started. It says started out as a food fight and caught on. Yeah, I've heard that before. That's cool. Yeah, David Heimel said, yeah, it wasn't something to do with someone from A&M said. I mean, I wish Tech and A&M still play. I know people, hate Aggies. I get it. I mean, when I went to Tech, I remember it was like almost like Bloods and Crips, like get ready for a fight with the Aggie fans at the game. So I get it, but I love sports hate. I'm not a fan of hate in any other kind. To me, if you're not causing any harm, then you're all right with me. I got a Bob Marley kind of philosophy about that. But I love good old-fashioned sports hate. And, I mean, it's fun to hate the Aggies. I'm just being honest. Of all the teams in Texas, that's the one that's the cult of A&M is the easiest for me to hate. I know some people who went to A&M that I can get along with and all that, but for the most part, I mean, I wish they play. I know they're going to do the charity basketball game, but that didn't count. I want them to play in football. Now, I want to get some kind of home and away series going on, or if they meet in a bowl game, like they actually allow them to meet in a bowl game. That would be great. That'd be a great story. Lucas the Goat said, "Do this more." I'm going to try and do this after games on Saturday night. I think this has gone pretty well so far. Yeah, Jeremy, that's a good question on who will produce Tech's uniforms after this season. I do not. Only what I've heard, I think, has already been out there from several people is that there is a lot of interest in Texas Tech going under the Adidas banner with Patrick Mahomes, of course, and he has a lot of interest in making that happen as well. And that makes total sense. I think that's really smart what Texas Tech has done in terms of aligning itself with Mahomes. Perhaps arguably the most influential athlete, definitely in the country, one of them in the world. Some of those soccer athletes are probably more famous than Mahomes, but he's right up there. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, there is in the contract, I've seen it, that Under Armour can match an offer from Adidas, but will they? How interested is Under Armour in matching that deal? And I don't know the answer to that question. That's why I don't have the concrete answer for you. So I think it is going to be either Adidas or Under Armour. If I had to say one, I'm going to say it's going to be Adidas moving forward, but I just do not know. I don't have a source or anything with Under Armour in terms of how interested they are in keeping Texas Tech. Corey Wright, does McGuire eventually get us to a Big 12 championship? That's a great question. I think the way he's recruiting, I think the fact that he can attract good coaches to his staff, I do believe that at some point he will get Texas Tech to the Big 12 championship. Now, whether they win it or not, we'll have to see. I was there in Minneapolis, man, for the Final Four. I've been through some of the heartbreak with Texas Tech, and it's hard for me to say they're going to win a Big 12 championship. But I do think McGuire at some point maybe in the next 2 years or so. Because I think next year it'd be interesting to see how they transition next year for some of these veteran guys moving on. But I think maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, the way they're recruiting, the type of athletes they're recruiting, I think they will be in the Big 12 championship. I think that's my best answer for you on that one. Joe Gutierrez said he'd like to see Tech join the Air Jordan brand. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Last Sunrise said Bob Marley, outlook on the world. That's right. All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I really appreciate y'all being a part of the live stream, asking the questions. It was a lot of fun. I think we're going to keep this going moving forward. But big victory for Texas Tech. They really needed that 49-28 over Houston. I think more than just the victory, the way they did it was the most impressive way. They ran the ball. They were physical. The defense shut them out in the second half, and then special teams came up with some big plays. So really all 3 phases of the game. We'll see if they can keep it going next week, but we're going to have tons of preview content, recruiting content all week leading up to it. So go to Inside the Red Raiders, hang out on our YouTube channel as well. So for now, I want to thank you for watching, joining in, and until next time.